Hey, everybody, and welcome to another day here on the right side of the grass. If you're watching this, you're doing well. I hope the Super Bowl treated you well. It was a pretty good game. Overtime, I mean, what more could you ask for? So today is, let's see, what is the date? February 12th. And we are coming to you live from sunny South Florida, from the Done Better Studios. And we are here to talk to you today about your mind, your body, your business, just like everything that we do here on Coaching Done Better, and the platform that sponsors this show. If you'd like to get better at something, give us a try. We've got coaches from all over the world on this platform to help you get better at whatever that is that you want to do. Just wanted to kind of touch on yesterday's game because we're going to talk about change management today and project management more specifically, and give you some great tips and give you some good stuff to think about, some good stories about some things that I dealt with in the past that you can apply really to anything that can change in an organization. But it really comes down to what we do in life. It's the little things. How we do the little things is how we do everything. And yesterday, when you're talking about competing with people at a level that you want to be competing at, that's just at the top of their games, and you want to be at the top of your game. It's the very smallest of things that can put you in advantage or put you at a disadvantage. And yesterday was a perfect example of San Francisco basically had that game won wire to wire. I know they fell down a few times, but for the most part, they were in control of the line. Where they really shined, though, in my opinion, was special teams, which is really the thing that is often overlooked in a football game is special teams. But that sets up the offense or your defense every single time. It gives your defense such an advantage when your special teams puts that ball back in between the goal line, the 5-yard line, and they got to drive the whole way. It just gives your defense superiority on the field because you've got them backed up. They're a little nervous to do certain things, right? You take a lot of plays away. So yesterday, San Francisco had an amazing special teams day, right? All the way up until the very last time that they had the opportunity to go into the end of the game with a win, and they kicked that ball, and one of the players just wasn't mindful about where he was on the field. And the guy for San Francisco was trying to tell the guy, who was blocking for him, doing his job, right? He had one job, to block for the guy catching the ball. He was doing it, but situational awareness on the field. And the guy was yelling at him to watch out, whatever the code word is, and the ball hit his ankle, which makes it a live ball. So then the receiver has to then try to jump on it, and that's almost impossible to do. And Kansas City jumped on it, and that's how they scored and went ahead or tied it up to go in overtime. So, when it comes down to change management, how this has to do with doing all the little things right, when we give you guys the tips today on how to go about change management, what it is, how to document it, when should you bring it up, when should you implement it, these little things, being situationally aware of what's going on in your organization, being in the right place at the right time, doing the right things every day. These are the things that are going to make your company successful or drive you right into bankruptcy, and you're going to be a non-entity. You're going to be working for somebody else. And I've been there myself plenty of times with projects big and small where I was just too thin. I was too thin, and I wasn't paying attention to the details. Changes were happening. I wasn't keeping up with them, and things got out of control. They can get out of control fast. Ask the 49ers, because they lost that game yesterday because of one bad play. Now, could they made more offensive plays? Yes, of course. But I think if you come down to one play, it was that one play by special teams where they dominated, except that one play in special teams. They dominated special teams. It's really incredible how that one mistake can change everything. So, on to today's topic, which is literally something that if you're a manager, it's going to be a very big part of your job. It's managing change, because things change all the time in an organization. Change management is the systematic approach that deals with the transition or transformation of an organization, of objectives, of processes, of values, technologies. Things change. The only thing that's consistent in life is change. All right. And I'm going to be speaking today more from a project manager's point of view. And when we talk about change management today, we're going to be talking about process that we use to get approval for changes to scope or budget or projects, adapting to changes that occur on most projects. Now, I did fiber optic construction for many, many years, for 30 years to be exact, and I did everything in that industry from digging ditches all the way up to owning my own company, also being executive operations manager or vice president for a national company, international. We did work here in America and in the Caribbean. So much so that I was the equity owner of one of those companies that when we sold it, changed my life, right? Put a lot of zeros in the bank and allowed me to change everything that I do about how I help people every single day. And that all comes from all the lessons I've learned from all the changes over the first 20 years that I got to implement them in the last 10 years that made the difference between me working until I'm 70 years old out on an inspection line to me selling that company for millions of dollars and being able to travel the world now speaking to people and associations and business owners about things that can take them from playing for leftover scraps into taking work away from the biggest companies in America, because that's what we learned how to do very well. And one of those things that keep you in it is dealing with change. So keep coming back to what the heart of today's topic is. It's change management and how to deal with the changes. Now, in my case, there are lots of things that can change. So there's different delivery dates. The target dates could change on what's the client is expecting or told you that this project needs to be due by X, but things happen. Weather happens. Materials might not get delivered. The scope might change. A lot of things happens to delivery dates. The cost changes. Overhead. People come, people leave. Your resources. People are your number one resource in the world. Can't just replace a superstar on your team overnight. It takes years to cultivate. So when you're talking about dealing with change in your values and changing the workplace, changing the type of work that you might do from project to project, you're going to have to deal with that people aspect and dealing with that. But we're not going to get really into that much today about people, but definitely a little bit about how to communicate with them. Technology changes all the time. The way that we deliver information back to our clients, the way we deliver information downline to our contractors or to our employees, things coming up every day that can help us. Changes in assumptions about who our target audience is, right? Who we might want to work for tomorrow is hopefully different than who we want to work for today. As long as you're not already working for the best and the biggest companies in America as a business owner, you're always wanting to look for getting into that area where you can be working on the biggest stage, right? So changes in who our target audience are. How do we speak to them? Where do we find them? How do we cultivate those relationships? Priorities might change. How do we deal with changing priorities? How do we identify priorities? Moving things up and down can help get things done with more transparency when we know what the priorities are. What's going to move the progress ball, right? Activity doesn't equal progress. So understanding what's going to progress the company forward, the project forward, understanding that from things that I just like to do and doing those activities is important. How about rules and regulations changing? I mean, OSHA changes rules all the time. Every single year there are new laws that come out twice a year, typically January and July. New rules come out, new regulations come out that might impact your industry. And of course, having the opportunity, especially like we did with using contractors, where we were a multi 50, 60, $70 million revenue generating company with like 20 employees, right? Mostly admin and inspections and managers. So those contractors coming and going, where you've got very little control, all right, of that. So that where you have to deal with that is by dealing with how you treat them, how do you pay them, how are you reporting with them, what are you giving them, how are you providing them the best service so that they don't want to go work for somebody else because they're going to be better off staying where they are. So that's a huge one. Big, small, doesn't matter. As long as change happens, you're going to have to deal with that change. So today we're going to talk about how to deal with that. So the first thing that we'll talk about right now is that change does happen, all right, every day because of external factors that you cannot control, like the weather, or internal change happens. So like changes in your systems, bringing your, let's say, your pay systems go haywire and you can't pay your contractors in time. And so they're getting frustrated, they're trying to leave, or you're losing information because your database crashed and everything that you had in billing ready to go out to the clients now has disappeared into the ether. So external changes and internal changes, or controllables or uncontrollables. What's the process for dealing with each of them? Do you have backups? Do you have stuff that you could do on a rain day? Do you have time built into your project on the rain day? Reactive changes versus proactive changes. There are certain change that happens that you are planning for. You're planning to implement a new system to make it easier for your inspectors to go out there and get photos of the plant in real time so that we can track what's going on with the project, versus reactive, which kind of like the example I gave where the database just kind of disappears, or a whole month worth of data. Somebody goes in and deletes it because you gave too many people access, and you got away from the controls of who's getting into the system and who has the rights to delete certain sensitive information or necessary information. So I might be able to have people upload pictures but not delete any. That has to be done by like a super admin. Otherwise, I'm going in and uploading pictures and I go, I don't want this one through 8, I don't want. So I go 1 through 8, delete, and unknowingly I deleted 1 through 80 and I only had 12, and the rest of them were other inspector pictures that had to do with billing for other projects. I mean, that's just one example of a reactive change that could happen versus a proactive change. We've got operational changes, things that we implement to get an edge on the competition. You might open up an office closer to your ideal client's central location so that they're seeing your trucks all the time. They're seeing your name, they're seeing the brand. You might do a better job with getting out there and getting your contractors branded up so that when they're seeing subcontractor out there, maybe your competition uses subs like you because it's just a thing to do in your industry, but maybe they're branded better so they look like they are employees. So another thing that we used to do is we used to forbid the word contractor. We never used to say that. It was kind of like the C word in our operation. You never wanted to say contractor. You always said crews, which is a different C word, I guess. So, but the bad C word was contractor. We don't want to say, we're going to send a contractor out there. He'll be there tomorrow. We would say, we're going to make sure that we have our crews out there tomorrow. They don't need to know if they're contractors, if they're in-house. So operational change or even optics is one. Strategic changes, right? And that comes back to kind of like the priorities. Right, things that happen due to management. For example, a new leader in our organization, they might want to do things different. There's a strategic reason that might be out of your purview that you don't understand why he's or she's putting these changes in. It's going to affect everything you do and everything your department does, everything you've already promised to your client. However, organizationally, there's a bigger picture, and they might implement some changes about how and when we do things that are for the better or for the long run. So keep an open mind. And now the best leaders will explain all these changes and why they're doing them, and some leadership teams do a poor job at that. But these are some things that we can expect as far as just obvious changes. These are some more integral changes that I've dealt with. Now, managing changes well. It's an excellent. It's a way to stand out professionally. So if you've got some competition inside your organization, one of the ways to make the biggest impressions on your executive teams and your C-suite is by dealing with these change, A, in a positive way, no matter what the change is, if it's reactive or proactive, B, by taking those changes and giving feedback about the impact of those changes. Here's what I foresee is going to be an impact, and here's some reality checks on, no, I misjudged it. You were right on. These changes are actually well, and we had to change a couple things to make it work well, but good go. So we've got that feedback will lets you stand out from your coworkers who probably hate change. A lot of managers especially hate change because they've got to implement it. They're held responsible for when their employees don't implement them, and employees, the bottom of the chain, the forward-facing people that have to actually do these changes, are always resistant. So how are you taking this change and explaining it to the forward-facing employees? That goes a long way of it getting done right. And that's how you will stand out differently from the C-suite when they know that you are the person that can implement their changes with positive ways, with quick implementation. So let's talk about some tips to project management changes and how we handle those. So first tip I'll talk about is called knowing your baseline. So the baseline is your initial plan that you've agreed to with your client, and it's documented in a statement of work. SOWs are called in the contracting world. An SOW is a statement of work. They include a scope, which is a high level of requirements with details underneath, the delivery dates of the project, not only the finish date, but the incremental stages of a completion perhaps, goals and objectives, which should be very, very clear if you're working on the same type of project year in, year out. Those incremental dates and end dates should be on a schedule that we're following and be able to track it either by department or by employee or overall. Milestones, not only for completing schedules, but how about the milestones of, did we get the permits? Did we get the right-of-way maintenance of traffic? Did we get the police lined up to shut down traffic this night? Did we get our material in? How much materials come in? What percentage of it? And maybe you got a bunch of material in, but it's all stuff that you need for the end of the project. You got nothing for the beginning. So keeping track of those different milestones is important. And probably the most important one is knowing the budget. And not only just what is the budget, but how are these budget line items, these change orders, going to impact the bottom line of the project? Many times your clients are just going to say, hey, can you do me a favor? We need this done. We need that done. Can you just add this to the project? And of course, your first inclination is to say yes. But what happens too often is that these clients take advantage of that. They know that they have asked you, they have to kind of feel obligated, but these little changes add up. So knowing the impact of that budget, because at the end of the day, this is a business, not a charity. And doing all these little small changes for clients oftentimes are coming right out of that profit line. Really, they are. So we're going to talk a little bit about change orders, but knowing your client's priorities is second on the list. So when you're out there working and you know that you have a scope and you've got a budget, you've got timelines, you've got benchmarks to make, but you're keep being pulled over to, can you go finish this little job first? This client called, can you run over there and talk to that person? Material guy didn't show up today. Could you come get your own material? It's good. You want to make your client happy, but every time that you say yes to something else they want, it's going to have an impact to the timeline and the budget that you have. So we have to build in that expectation of yes, but, right? Yes, but it'll end up, this is the consequence. And you want to put that in writing. So we're going to talk about that next. But you want to make sure that they understand that I'm absolutely willing to make your priorities my priorities, just as you know that when I make that a priority, this deadline is going to slide by as much time as you're needing me to do this. Now, if you're a huge organization, you have extra resources to put on that. That's a different story. But most of the people that I'm talking to right now are small business owners, a lot of time even solopreneurs, right? They wear a lot of hats. And you can only be in one place at one time. my friend Stan Phelps says you can only ride one horse with one ass. You can't ride two horses with one ass. And when you're a solopreneur and your client's asking you to do multiple things, you can only ride one of those horses. So just make sure that they understand that the impact, that priority is now going to take everything else cascade out further. So defining the change process. At the start of a project, we want to outline to our clients that we'll be willing to deal with changes in general, but those scope changes and the particular documentation of how we're going to follow up with that is going to happen exactly like this. So how we're going to be dealing with the change throughout the project, how the changes, that we know changes are inevitable, but who's going to sign off on them? In other words, when you ask me to stop doing this and go do this, is it just a phone call or am I going to get an email? So that way when I miss something later or somebody else, maybe your superior asks me why am I not doing this, I can not throw you under the bus, but listen, if you send me an email and I see your superior's copied, I'm feeling very comfortable that when I have somebody showing up at the original job site and there's no one there, they're going to say, oh yeah, I saw that email. He sent them to another job today. So make sure that we understand how it's getting signed off and how it's getting delivered, how those change orders can be done verbally. What happens if you get a guy who asks you to do something and you go, can you email that to me? And they say, yes, sir, and they never do. Stop asking. And what I do is I called it the as per our conversation email. So every time somebody asks you, can you do something else? Can you add this to the project? Can you go address this other issue before you continue on with this path? Not a problem. I'm on it. Give me the address. I'll be there in 10 minutes. And then on the way there at the stoplights, I'm writing an email. As per our conversation, I've stopped working at X, Y, and Z job, and I'm now heading to ABC to deal with this client issue that you just asked me to do, and I'll get back to this one within 3 hours. Shouldn't take long. Thanks for having the confidence in giving this project change to me, and yes, we'll get it done. But as per our conversation email covers you and them, and you could always go back and keep those in a separate file. But that's one way that you can take control from those change order happy clients who never seem to follow up and forget that they ask you to do things a lot of times. Understanding who can request changes. A lot of times you might be on a job site with a lot of Indians, right? And I mean, a lot of chiefs and no Indians. So everyone thinks that they're the boss, and they're your client, but they don't have the same, skin in the game that maybe their bosses do. And so when they keep asking you to keep adding things to a project or change things to a project, and they're not telling their above folks, it's sometimes very nice to have clarity on who can request change orders. Or again, is that as per our conversation email goes, copying their bosses, sometimes make that very clear. No problem, I'm going to do it. I'll send you an email talking about this. Is it okay if I copy Scott? Right, so he knows that we're doing this. If they say no, you know right now that it's going to be your butt in the sling if you get behind. So that's a good way to test that litmus test to find out if they are really telling their superiors that they need something done, or if they're just covering their butt with your labor because they had someone else mess up and they don't want to let their boss know. Finally, one of the things that I want to talk about in this particular section is called knowing the decision makers. So at the end of the day, not only do you have the client upper echelon that you have to worry about, but you have your ownership upper echelon. So if you're a manager, if you're a project manager, you got a supervisor, you got a director, you got a VP of operations, you've got a CEO. So how far up do you want to be copying people? You don't want to copy CEOs when you're a project manager. You want to copy like 1 or 2 levels up, and that's about it. Knowing those decision makers. Also knowing what's worth writing those emails about. If they're just asking you something very simple like, hey, can you do me a favor and can you come pick up a couple of reels of fiber because our guy's not here today and we want to make sure that, or even tomorrow, right? It's tomorrow and we know the delivery person's not going to be there tomorrow. Can you come and pick it up? And it's for a job that you're going to be doing tomorrow. You don't have to write those emails on those, most likely, especially if it's just, they're in the habit of doing it. They do it most times. They're giving you a day's notice that instead of delivering the fiber, you might have to go pick some up. that might not be necessary of writing these emails. So understand those levels of when I should do it and who I should be copying as far as following up. So documenting these changes, kind of we talked about that, communicating early and often, right? That's just something that we're going to continue to do throughout the project. Review and assess the impact. Again, if it's something small, you know it's not going to impact you. If it's going across town to pick up some fiber, you just want to leave it a little early, make sure they know what time they open. You know that you need the paperwork to get what they need. Maybe the person's going to be there to sign it out for you, you know, all that kind of stuff. You'll have all the approvals, you make it fast. Do not do a change unless you get approval to do it, especially if it's going to be an impact to the bottom line, like a financial. In other words, we used to have this thing called rock adder, where we would have to let the company know when the place that we were digging had rock, and it would take 3, 4, 5 times longer, so we would be able to charge more money for that time that we were digging. And it wasn't a time charge, but we just charged more per foot, no matter how long it took us. But we would have to document, take pictures of the rock, open the ground up, really show them, and then we would have to send them pictures real time and say, hey, we're hitting some rock. We've already went out and we've estimated that it's the next 40 feet. That's rock, but after that, it's pretty clear. They used to say yes all the time because we would say ahead of time, how many feet of the 500 feet is rock? We're here. We found 40 foot of the 500 feet. Here are pictures of the rock. Here's start, middle, end, 3 pictures. Can you approve it? It's going to be at this much money. The impact is this much total. 99% of the times they would write back in an email saying yes, approved. Without that, what I would do is go to another part of the project, start shooting back and clean dirt until I hit that rock again if that approval didn't come up. Because if they say no, I'm just not going to do that part. I'll just leave it open. I'll just leave it undone and then say, I need approval before I can do it because I'm going to have to pay my contractors to do it, that's for sure. And so once you show them that you've gone around it and you continued on with the project except for that little section because they haven't returned an approval yet, even though you've given them the pre-approved arrangement that you're going to give them pictures, how deep they are, how rocky it is, how long it is. You've done all that. AT&T used to have the 5 whys, right? Where is it? Why are you doing it? When are you doing it? And then, of course, how much of it needs to be done and who's doing it. So you'd have the 5 whys, and then they would have no problem as long as you follow that format of doing it. The best things, of course, is understanding most of that before you start. As soon as you get the project, you understand. You can have these conversations that I know this area so well that I know these are the parts that are rock. You've got no rock in here. I know it's going to be 25% rock. So let's go ahead and just put 25%. That way when I get to it, I can just go through it. And if I'm getting halfway through my project and I'm at 10% rock, I know we're good. If I'm halfway through my project and I'm at 25%, I know that we have a problem. We should have been talking before I hit 25%. So there's a lot of that. That way that you're getting away from things creeping in, right? Can you quickly do this? Can you quickly do that? No, we have a system, right? We follow the system, and that way there's no things that can get away from us. So I hope those tips help today on how to deal with changes. Again, mostly in the project management world, especially if it involves a client that's asking to do things, and especially if you have crews that are actually doing them. So you're kind of a middle person on that, a middleman, they used to say. Now we have to say middle person. So whatever you're doing in your job, in your career, no matter where you are in the organization, wherever you are in the client chain line, we've all got to deal with change. And identifying the decision makers, documenting these change. We used to have something called a rake-off that we would do before we even started a project, and we would really drill down very, very, very deep on the project to make sure that we've captured everything that could possibly go on in that project, and we made sure that the PO had them all listed. And if it was missing anything, we would make a list over here of things that weren't on the PO that could happen over here. And then if it was definitely happening and it wasn't on the PO, that was an easy one because we could show them. But it could happen over here, then we'd just keep an eye on them. So we would Have these changes top of mind, get these approvals beforehand. So as we land the plane today, as they say, I want to thank everyone for supporting this channel. I get a lot of comments on there about how this is helpful. If you want this information that I just talked about, okay, you can go over here to Coaching Done Better. Coaching Done Better. You can, let's see, come up here to sign in. Actually, come down here to create an account, to find a coach. You'll sign up, but once you have an account, you just sign in. It's absolutely free to do this, okay? Well, let's see. You're going to go to, I'm going to log off here. I'm going to sign in as a member, like you, if you were looking for this. So I've got all this stuff on here that you can absolutely have for free just by going on here and downloading out of my resource vault. You can have this checklist that I just talked about today. So once you sign in, you go here to Resource Vault, and you'll see strategies for managing change, okay? Come over here, strategies for managing change, right here. As you can see, if I take this and zoom out a little bit, this is a PDF. It's 5 pages long. It really touches on just about every point that I made today. If it's any value to you, you just come over and download it. Hit that little button right there. It'll pop out and you can download it. So I hope that that is some service to you. Go to coachingdonebetter.com, sign up for a free account. I want to coach, no credit cards even. Just ask you to create an account. You'll create an account, go to Resource Vault right there. That will be for your change management, importance of managing changes in operation. It's a PDF, it's free for you. So I'd love to see you on there supporting our coaches. There's all sorts of other resources on there too, by the way. I mean, you could really come in here and spend some time going through all these different resources of all these different coaches. And we're improving this website every day. Every day we're adding something to it. We're updating it. We're really trying to work hard to make sure it looks really good. So if you're a coach and you want to have your profile on here, just like mine was on there that you saw the resources of all you got to do is go to coachingdonebetter.com. Instead of signing up that says I want to coach, you sign up as I am a coach. Choose the monthly option. It's $97 a month. However, if you put Done Better 90, you'll get 3 months for free. You won't have to pay a dime for 3 months. For 90 days, you'll be able to create your profile, create your expertise, your tags, your keywords. I take those tags, keywords, and I start paying for advertising to start driving people in who need your help. Because really, at the end of the day, this platform is to help the coaches and the people, the members who want to improve their mind, body, and business. And we're looking for more physical fitness type trainers. We want to get some more physical fitness trainers on here. A lot of people train online. This is a perfect place. We have a live streaming platform. Coaches come on here and train group, train personal, whatever, right on the platform. That is it for today. The Super Bowl is over. About to get into NASCAR season. I hope you have a great week. We will see you tomorrow on Tech Tuesday here on Live Stream Done Better. Yes.